Phantasy Star New Genesis will soon be releasing on the PlayStation 4. As such, an army of new players will soon be joining the game. This video seeks to help new players find their bearings and point them in the right direction upon entering this whole new world. The first thing you need to do to start the game is, well, get the game. The game is free to play and available for download on the Epic Store, the Windows Store, Steam, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. Soon. And when I say free to play, I also mean free to win. While the game has microtransactions that offer a variety of quality of life improvements, they aren't super necessary. You can make 3 characters for free and potentially make all of them super powerful without having to spend a single dollar. I knew a guy back in classic PSO2 who played Tekker, who claimed to have never spent any money on the game. He had a lot of cosmetics and super powerful endgame equipment to boot. There were many battles when he was able to outdamage dedicated attack classes like Fighter, Braver, and Hero as a Tekker, a support class! But the point I'm trying to make is that time, effort, and skill will often be worth more than just throwing money at the game. This is also meant to fill up some time because chances are the game will take a long while to download. I think the game's file size is well over 100 gigabytes, but that's because this is actually 2 games in one, which we will get to later. Once it's finally finished downloading and you start the game, you'll need to pick a server or ship to play on. While Japanese players have 10 ships to pick from, global players only have 4, so choosing one is a little simpler. Based on reports I've heard, ships 1 and 2 are the most populated, but ship 1 is more hardcore while ship 2 is a bit more laid back. Ship 3 is a bit less populated, but I've heard people who move there think it's the friendliest. Ship 4 is even less populated than that, so much so that the only reports I have of it are about how underpopulated the ship is. So if you ask me, I think ships 2 and 3 would be the best ships for new players to join. And this game has crossplay, so you can play with anyone on your ship no matter what system they're using. Once you've picked your ship, it is time to create a character with the most advanced character creation system you have ever seen. The possibilities are seemingly infinite, so I have no doubt you'll be able to create the ultimate character. And don't worry if you can't come up with anything good right off the bat. You can come back later to edit yourself as much as you like. Also, race and gender have no effect on your stats at all. In fact, race and gender are effectively cosmetic options. You can turn a female Newman into a male Cast, or vice versa, whenever you want. Next you'll be asked to pick a class, and you should watch my beginner's class guide if you haven't already. Now it is time to begin the game. Now you can start with the story where Hatsune Miku is preparing to launch you from orbit.
Pod 909 System Check Complete Condition All Green.
Much like the classic Xenoblade Chronicles X, a dark-skinned girl wakes you up from a stasis capsule and you have absolutely no idea what is going on. Given exactly 3 seconds to collect your bearings, you are thrust into battle with a rather tough opponent. Luckily, this is the only one you need to deal with. We then go to a place called Aleo Town where we are introduced to our characters, Aina, Manon, and Garoa. Yeah. They wholeheartedly welcome you to Aleo Town, so at least you're not homeless. They give you the lowdown on where you are and what's going on, including how this is a planet torn by war with the dolls, which were those things we fought earlier. Garoa then sends you out to talk to people who will actually teach you how combat in this game works. After you're done with that, Garoa throws a feast to celebrate your arrival. Enjoy Aleo Town while you can because Dark Falls shows up almost immediately to ruin everyone's night. You are then thrust into war with the biggest threat ever, TM, and you are still only level 1. However, this is not working, so we are told to as Gaora decides to Rules of Nature on Dark Falls.
Rules of nature!
It does not work, as Dark Falls uses the biggest laser ever, TM, directly to his face.
Well, there goes the old neighborhood.
The next morning. Turns out Dark Falls' biggest laser ever, TM, wiped Aleo Town completely off the map. So basically, Aleo Town is gone, Aina has irreparable emotional trauma, and we are now homeless. The only logical thing to do now is go into a cave and fight some weird armadillos. We eventually make it to a new place called Central City. Their leader, Crawford, asks us to join ARX in the effort to defeat Dark Falls. Upon agreeing to do so, he gives us our own rooms, which means we are no longer homeless. Aina, don't you think the camera angles in games can be a little strange?
What do you mean?
Once you finish the tutorial, you are officially recognized as being in the game and can start getting daily bonuses and such. And now you are able to start the second tutorial! Yay! Follow the orange icon on the screen to know where to go. The first thing you learn is how to jump super epically. After that, you're taught about the various facilities you can find in this world. First is the Ryuker device, named after the tech Ryuker from Phantasy Star Online 1, which opened a teleport gate to the city, which is essentially how Ryuker devices work. They create a series of landmarks that you can quick travel to at the click of a few buttons. From here, you're also able to change blocks to go where the people are, or go to a classic PSO2 block, which is where the 2 games in 1 comes into play. You see, New Genesis is essentially a new game tacked on top of the old Phantasy Star Online 2. If you've never tried the original PSO2, I'd recommend at least giving it a try for the story, which is one of my personal favorites in the series. It's a lengthy story written over the course of 9 years, with a complicated story featuring fetch quests, betrayal, revenge, time travel, alternate dimensions, and even alternate timelines. Completing certain story missions also gives you rewards that you can take back to New Genesis, namely Star Gems, which I will talk about more later. Back in New Genesis, we also learned about cocoons, which are like mini tutorials, or in some cases act like skill checks as you get stronger. Beating cocoons earns you skill points which you can use to learn skills on your classes. Learn more about skills in my basic class guide for beginners. Upon doing this, you are given a full set of Renaisa weapons and units. These are good 3-star items that can be equipped even at level 1, so you absolutely should use them as they will carry you through the Alia region. We are also taught how to hunt and gather just like our prehistoric ancestors, only this time we can do it with guns. You can use up to 10 food items to create a meal that'll give you various bonuses in combat. Search the land for food and create many delicious meals. But now it's time for more story to happen, as the gang is sent to Mount Magnus to defeat a dolls unit called a Noglith, which is effectively a very large pitbull that attacks everything. The fight is going well at first, but then the Noglith levels up and turns red, which activates Aina's PTSD, leaving her out of commission, meaning me and this cool mech dude need to take it out ourselves.
But what does it change?
Nothing!
While the Noglith has now developed stronger attacks, it has also developed a very noticeable weak point, meaning I can blow it up with ease. After the battle, the cool robot tells Aina that fear is normal but she needs to get over it, albeit in a much nicer way. Aina then tells us that she realizes why Woa was against her joining ARX, and now that she knows where she went wrong, she can change. A change, the fruits of which we will see later. Now it is time for tutorial number 3! Now we are taught about setting a subclass. Please refer to, you guessed it, the beginner's class guide. You are also taught about region mags that you can feed to give you boosts. You, personally, should aim to feed it 400 points of food. How many points a food item offers depends on what it's hungry for and how full it is. Fulfilling this will grant you, personally, a 20% boost to rare drop rate. When these mags are full, they can also offer boosts such as potency increase, experience increase, and rare drop increase. And as the name suggests, boosts from the Alia region mags will not carry over to Retem, or Kavaris, or whatever this 4th region is. You are also given one of the most difficult side quests you will have to complete during these early game stages, activating a PSE burst on Mount Magnus. Well, it's hard for me since I'm doing it alone, but it should be easier for you if you're doing it with a group. Anyway, combat zones have this gauge called a PSE gauge. It goes up by defeating enemies, but if you're unlucky it may go down. Once it's at level 4, completing a trial will activate something called a PSE burst, which I seem to be having trouble doing. But there is a fail-safe method if nothing else works. The Alia region is sometimes struck by heavy thunderstorms. In exploration areas, this will summon gigantic enemies which you cannot fight yet, and in combat zones, the PSE gauge will be locked to level 4, meaning any trial you complete will activate a PSE burst. A PSE burst is an exciting event where a large amount of enemies rapidly spawn in a tight area, meaning this is a great time to get experience, meseta, and drops. I should probably mention this now, but this game has 3 different kinds of currency: End meseta, which you can use in general shops, Arcs Cash or AC, and Star Gems or SG. Arcs Cash is bought with real money. It's largely used to try to get cosmetic items or buy a premium set, which grants you 400 extra storage spaces, unlocks an autosell feature, gives you a free tribe boost whenever you eat food, and lets you sell items on the player shop. The player shop is a great place to sell weapons, cosmetic items, and augment capsules that you do not need to help other players. It's a fairly easy way to gain more End meseta, so you're ready whenever something you need drops. Star Gems, on the other hand, are often given out for free, either as title rewards, special scratch items, or sometimes the developers give them out when maintenance goes a little too long. Speaking of which, maintenance happens every week on Tuesday night in the Americas or early Wednesday morning in Europe. It always happens at the same time every week unless previously stated otherwise. And if anything unexpected happens, like it goes too long or an emergency maintenance is held, they apologize by giving us more Star Gems. Star Gems can be used to buy something called material storage, which gives you a place to hold all your minerals, food, and augment capsules, which frees up a very large amount of space in regular storage. Star Gem can also be used to buy gold mission passes, which in turn greatly increases the amount of rewards you get from the mission pass. You get more rewards from the mission pass by increasing your tier, and you increase your tier by completing weekly and daily missions, which you unlock by starting the next chapter of the story, which sends the gang to some laboratory ruins to investigate dolls readings. You can tell that Aina is being very aggressive to make up for her shortcomings in the previous mission.
Hurry, you guys, it's amazing! It's Kitongu! Not.
At the end of the mission, you run into a large enemy called a Didal. His attacks hit hard, but his attacks are slow. As long as you pay attention to his attacks, you should be able to beat him no problem. Okay, that's enough of that, because apparently there was an explosion in the forest. Turns out the robot from before had a squad in there, and we suspect the explosion was caused by a powerful dragon-like dolls unit called Nex Alia. Riding off her aggression from the last mission, Aina volunteers to check out the situation with us in tow. And with that, we now enter the 4th and final tutorial. This next mission is rather tough, so I strongly recommend preparing well for it. The first thing the game wants you to do is create a multi-weapon. I mentioned multi-weapons briefly in my Kavaris equipment video, and they are good on their own if you know what you're doing. But for this instance, I'd recommend just getting a couple of 1-star weapons and putting them together real cheap-like. Now, what I want you to do is explore the region. Find as many cocoons as you can and get as many skill points as you can. One cocoon looks like it's on Mount Magnus, but it's actually underneath it. You get to it by going into a cave behind a waterfall in South Alio. There's also facilities called towers that are effectively super cocoons. They're much longer and often much trickier than regular cocoons, but completing one gives you 4 skill points. There's also a cocoon to the northeast in Halfa Lake called, Setsuna, and it's a duel against an enemy called a Bujin. And the music here is, a little different. And the music here is, a little different. This enemy comes at you fast, with a katana and only 1 arm. His hits are light, but his hits are fast, sometimes giving you no time to react if you get hit. If you haven't learned how to guard or evade, you need to learn. Otherwise, this guy is going to wreck you harder than he wrecked your mother last night.
Well, off to visit your mother!
A few more things you need to do before tackling Nex Alio is increase your weapon's potential and add some augments to your equipment. And be sure to talk to NPCs around the city. Chances are they'll give you a side quest that'll teach you how to do things that I may have forgotten to mention. One especially important thing that I should have mentioned earlier is battle power. The long and short of it is that battle power is a single numeric representation of your stats. Hit points and photon points are not counted, but attack, defense, augments, and weapon upgrades all add into your battle power. You need to get a certain amount of battle power to initiate each of the story quests. If all goes well, you should have everything you need to start the next mission. you'll run into a number of tough opponents, but remember your training and you should do well. And what do you know, Boojin makes a return here too!
For some reason, he doesn't scare me anymore.
After all that, you soon run into Nex Alio, the certified dragon boss that appears in every Phantasy Star game. Luckily, the cool robot appears just in time to save you. Here is one last lesson for you. Many bosses and other large enemies have breakable parts. Breaking these parts have a range of useful effects such as revealing weak points, weakening or disabling certain attacks, or simply strengthening any bouncer players. Some folks say that breaking parts can improve the drop rates of certain items, however I can neither confirm nor deny if this actually works. The battle goes well, but then a cutscene happens and Nex Alio turns red, and almost activates Ina's PTSD, but she goes through character development and gets over it. Then we move on to the second phase of the fight, which I must admit is rather tough. I had to redo this mission a few times in my first playthrough because this enemy hits much harder if you're not ready for it. But if you came well trained and well prepared, it shouldn't be too hard of a fight. After that, you head back to Central City, where it turns out Dozer was there to collect materials from Nex Alio to help build something called Central Cannon to compete with Dark Falls' biggest laser ever, TM. However, we don't have enough materials, so we are soon sent off to the Retem region to collect more. After a bit of story involving a gigantic robotic snake, you reach Retem City where you are given a whole bunch of 4-star weapons, which you should upgrade to from your 3-star. From here you can explore the region and follow the story at your leisure, and you should check out my catching up to current content video so you have good ideas on how to level up quickly. With this, you are now done with the tutorials. Congratulations! Genuinely speaking, I enjoyed this new adventure the first time I played it, and then I enjoyed it again when I redid it on the Japanese servers to get much of the footage for this video. Exploring this new world, learning the lay of the land, and testing out the new combat system made for plenty of excitement. The only problem with Day 1 New Genesis is that we were pretty much stuck in the tutorial region for 6 months. But now there is hordes of content for new players to enjoy. And just think, chances are it's only gonna get better, with new ways to play and new skill checks to look forward to. This has been Slick, hoping that the new coming PS4 players can enjoy the adventure in this whole new world.